in D.C. with the Superior Court and the Federal Court?
All right, for anybody who don't know, most people in this country live in states, and states are broken down into counties and then townships and cities and lower things. In DC, since DC is not a state, DC is a federal district. So for people who can't, a person who can't understand that, the best example to give you is just to think of a city in this country that is just a federal city because it's not in a state. So they had a district federal court here from the beginning of them doing courts all over the country, okay? And around 1972, after almost 100 plus years of existence here, DC created what is called a superior court. And the only way to give a person that doesn't understand that an example of what our superior court is the equivalent to a state court. So in DC, if you catch a charge here and you get a federal charge in the Department of Justice, you know what I'm saying, say that you broke a federal law. Like everybody say everything is federal, but it's a catch to it, right? A U.S. code, let's say USC 922G, which is the case for felon in possession of a firearm, right? If you catch that case, automatically you under DC code and you go to federal court.
Right.
But if you catch a regular pistol charge, and off the top of my head, I don't know the DC code for it, right? You would get a carrying a pistol without a license charge, or you could get a felon in possession charge in Superior Court as well, but you would be prosecuted in a lower court. The catch for anybody who don't understand, and even some DC residents and people that grew up here, dispute or debate that, not fully understanding this catch here, and this is the catch that I tell them to explain it to them without being in an argument. You are only prosecuted by the United States Attorney's Office in DC if you catch a felony, period, okay? So if you catch a gun charge and they leave it local, you still prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney. If you catch a gun charge and they take you federal, you prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney. So you tell me the difference, bro. Now, if you are a juvenile or you catch a misdemeanor as an adult, you are prosecuted by what is called an attorney general, a local prosecutor. However, the local prosecutor's office is inside the office of the U.S. Attorney. I think I made it kind of simple with that right there.
Right.
He don't have an office. His office is inside the office of the U.S. Attorney. And if you catch a felony, again, you're going to be prosecuted by a U.S. Attorney, whether you get a Superior Court case or you get a federal case in the United States District Court. Before there was before Lawton closed, which was our local Department of Corrections, which was a series of 8 prisons built in the state of Virginia. Like, we never had a prison in the District of Columbia as a city. I don't know how many cities, which there are some that weren't as populated. For an example, Atlanta. Atlanta was built in maybe 1910, 1932, in the early 1900s. Right now, off the top of my head, I'm thinking about something else. But the Atlanta Penitentiary was built in the early 1900s. That's a fact. I forgot the exact date, right? Mm-hmm. But it was built in a city. But that city wasn't a populated metropolis as it is now. Right now, in the District of Columbia, where, remember, the first capital of the United States wasn't in D.C., for people who don't know. They functioned in New York as the capital of the United States. They also functioned in Philadelphia as the capital of the United States. And the Pennsylvania militia ran Congress ass out of town because they wasn't paying them. And they said they will never have the seat of the capital held in a state that has its own militia or army, which is why no city houses or hosts the United States capital. That's why D.C. has been formed by land annexed or given by the states of Maryland and Virginia. Southwest part of our city, actually, parts of Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, were parts of D.C. before. But being those residents, mostly white, that had a vote, right, knew that they were losing a huge part of being a United States citizen by losing the right to vote in Congress. And they petitioned to go back to Virginia to be a resident of a state.
Right.
D.C. residents have no vote in Congress. We can cry about all the things that's done to D.C. residents in the federal system and the prison system, but nobody can do nothing about it. The highest official in the District of Columbia is a mayor. Congress oversees and decides what happens to us and where we go if we are convicted of any crime in the United States. I mean, any United States crime or local crime in Washington, D.C. You see what I'm saying? When you are sentenced in a state, for an example, you commit a crime in Maryland, you commit a crime in Florida. Let's use Florida because you caught a case in Florida, correct?
Right.
When you're convicted of a crime in Florida, do you recall off the top of your head whose custody you are committed to?
The state of Florida.
Yeah, but who is at the top of that?
The state attorney office.
The governor. The governor is whose custody you're sentenced to. Some states can't even parole you without the consent of the governor.
Right.
But my point is this. In D.C., when you are convicted, you are sentenced to the custody of the United States Attorney General no matter what courtroom you come out of. So if you catch a case in Maryland, the highest person you can go to in the state of Maryland is going to be the governor, unless it's a federal case.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
In D.C., no matter what you do, you are sentenced to the custody of the United States Attorney General, which is why even before law closed, what some people don't recall or remember, you were still sentenced to the custody of the United States Attorney General. That's why they could come in law and take loads of 40 and 100 out and send them all the way to places like Texas and Washington State. Terminal Island, you could go anywhere. Before there was a Lawton built, and Lawton, the first part of Lawton that was built in 1910, all right?
Mm-hmm.
There were already people from Washington, D.C. that had been sentenced in federal court that were doing time in federal prisons. It was only two places you could go back then, Leavenworth or Atlanta. There were people from Washington, D.C. that was in those places, and when Lawton was first built, the very first time that opened in something like 30 days, they removed D.C. prisoners from those two federal institutions to start doing time at Lawton before there was 100 people there.
Right, right.
So, that's pretty much the breakdown.